It's Talk Point again on Lagos Television. My name is Omololu Rosso. Today on Talk Point, we'll be looking at the proposed autonomy for local government in Lagos State, for their councillors, specifically in Lagos State. You recall that some years back under the Buhari administration, moves were made to make sure that local governments have their autonomy. And right from there, when the present government of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu got in power in 2003, he also made efforts and also says that efforts must be put in place to ensure that local governments have their autonomy. So today on Talk Point, we'll be looking at autonomy for local government councillors. They are the legislative arm of the government, and also they also have functions that they play. That's what we'll be looking at today on Talk Point. And you recall that local government administration dates back to the pre-colonial era and also after the colonial era and up to 1960 when Nigeria got our independence and when it also moved to a republic in 1963. That's what we'll be looking at today. And the 1999 Constitution, which we currently operate, gives room for legislators to also come on board with the executive arm and the judicial arm, even at the local government level. To discuss that with me this afternoon, I have a gentleman. He is a public affairs analyst and he's also familiar with appearance on Lagos Television too and other media organizations. He's also the chief press secretary of Ikeja local government. I have Olalekan Oni with me. Lekon, nice to have you on Talk Point.
Same here. It is my pleasure to be here this afternoon. Good afternoon.
Yes. Let's look at councillors. Who is a councillor and what is the role of a councillor?
All right, so just as you have at the national level, you have the National Assembly. At the state level, you have the state House of Assembly members. At the local government level, you also have the councillor, who is the representative of a political ward in every local government. They also have the same functions of the National Assembly, the same function of the state House of Assembly members. It is the same functions that all councillors have at the local government level, and one of their responsibility is oversight functions to make laws in the local level. The laws they make at the local level is called the bylaws. They also have oversight functions to ensure that what we have, there's check and balances at the local government level, checking the executive arm of government, appropriate, approving budgets and many other, functions, just as you have at the national and the state level. Those are some of the functions of the councillors.
Yes, you have given a brief on it. We also have a report that has been put together because the Lagos State House of Assembly is planning at this moment. They had a plenary session, and they are planning now to make sure that local government councillors have autonomy so that they can also function better. We have that report from our Lagos House of Assembly correspondent Olatunde Yusuf. Let's listen to that report, then we will come back to further give analysis on what we're discussing.
Need to grant financial to the legislative arm of the local government and local council development areas in the state generates extensive debate on the floor of the House, with lawmakers emphasizing the urgent need to empower local legislators to function without dependence on the executive arm of the councils. Honorable Ganiu Okanlawon-Sani, who raises the motion, notes that the Constitution provides for separation of powers across all levels of government.
At present, the legislative arm in all local government areas and local council development areas depends on the executive arm for funds to carry out their statutory functions. Further observes that such dependence undermines the principle of separation of powers, weakens effective oversight.
During the discussions, lawmakers point out that financial autonomy would enable council legislators to access and control their funds directly, thereby strengthening their independence in lawmaking, monitoring of budgets and expenditures, and promoting transparency in governance.
Everyone knows that separation of power will bring openness, accountability, public confidence, and it will enhance training. And more so, it will even further enhance the representation to the people that they are representing.
The 1999 Constitution, as attached, effectively stipulates the functions of the local government systems, most especially their roles. And this motion itself will assist them to increase their independence.
Lagos State is what it is today because of this noble house. And if we really want what our father, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, wants for each of the local governments in Nigeria, that Lagos State is setting a very good pace this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, our local council legislative arms must also get their autonomy.
The Speaker of the House, Right Honorable Mudashiru Obasa, describes the move as a bold step towards deepening democracy at the grassroots.
Particularly at this time that the federal government has increased allocations to our local government. So we must see the impact of such increments, and this is the only way to go about it for us to recognize, to feel what the government, federal government is doing, and to allow our people at the local government level to enjoy the dividend of democracy.
To address this issue, the Assembly directs its Committee on Local Government Administration, Chieftaincy Affairs and Rural Development to begin work on enacting a self-accounting law for the legislative arm of the councils. Olatudo Yusuf, LTV News.
Yes, that was a report put together by our Lagos State House of Assembly correspondent, Sundun Yusuf, talking about what the House, the Lagos State House of Assembly, is planning to ensure that democracy is further entrenched at the grassroots for sustainability and also development. Lekon, you just listened to that report,
Yes.
and now, what readily comes to your mind when you first heard that the local governments are supposed to have councillors that will be autonomous so that they won't be too dependent on the executive arm?
You see, let me first of all commend the Lagos State House of Assembly, for raising this kind of bill. It shows that, they are also doing their job effectively, and also shows that Lagos is setting a very high standard for other subnationals. And let me say that well done to the Lagos State House of Assembly. Now, from the debate we saw on the floor of the Lagos State House of Assembly yesterday, we saw the merits of the advantages of having councillors being independent when it comes to financially, because they stated all the merits why it is good for them, so that they can be independent of the executive arm. They are not relying solely on the executive arm. And one of the assembly members also, one of the legislators there, said that it will give them the opportunity to also reach out more to their constituents in their various ward levels. And that's one of the advantages. We saw that if you ask people today, when they talk about the local government administration in Nigeria, people only recognize the executive chairman of the local government, meaning that people don't really pay attention to the councillors. And one of the reasons is because people don't actually know that. In fact, in some areas, people will tell you that they don't know that councillors exist. When you talk about local government administration in Nigeria, the only focus is on the executive chairman. And just as we have the president, we have the National Assembly, people pay attention to their senators, people pay attention to their House of Rep members, people pay attention to their State House of Assembly members. But when it comes to local government level, people don't even talk about the councillors. This financial autonomy will give them, more attention. People will pay attention to them because they know that, at least to a very large extent, they also have a responsibility. Money is coming to them, and these monies must also be used for the people. We have in the case of the National Assembly, we talk about constituency project, whereby apart from making laws, federal legislators, senators and federal House of Rep members also do other things apart from making laws or presenting bills and all of that. They talk about constituency projects. We see National Assembly members constructing schools, building roads, doing empowerment and all of that, because they have some level of finances that comes to them. We also talk about State House of Assembly members, apart from making laws. We've seen State of Assembly members taking up projects, doing roads, empowering people and all of that. But when it comes to the local government level, you don't have councillors doing any of sort. And by the time they have their financial autonomy, we believe that one or two things will also be projects will also be taken over by them as well.
Yes, it's a potpourri of so many things. But looking at it, what impact do you think these councillors can have? Because we're just like you said earlier, we have the legislators at the federal level representing states. We have them at the state level representing their various constituencies. We have 40 constituencies in Lagos,
Yes.
and now you're going to have councillors also getting to the grassroots. What impact do you think can this bring?
Well, it depends on when you talk about financial autonomy and impact. What financial autonomy simply means is that you have more money coming to the councillors as well. They have their own budget as well. As a legislative arm of the local government, councillors will now have like an annual budget whereby you say that a particular amount of money is appropriated for them annually. Apart from their recurrent expenditure, they can also say that, okay, if you are going to be getting XYZ amount of money in a year, we also can take up projects. And that's impact. When they take up projects, they can do empowerment programs. They can do, depending on the idea each councillor has, they can also take up projects. And that project is impact. By the time you have projects, that means even though now that you don't have a financial autonomy for councillors, we've heard of councillors in different areas taking up projects. I've heard of councillors who did borehole. 2 boreholes in their wards in the space of 4 years. We've heard of councillors renovating town hall for their communities, and so by the time they now have money, they now have their their own financial autonomy. What that means is that more money, comes to the councillors. They can as well, with that money, they can as well make impact in their communities and their wards.
Yes, Nigeria has over 19,000, precisely about 19,107 councillors in the 777 local governments, 74 local governments, including the FCT in Abuja. Yes. Now, in Lagos, we have about 376 councillors and wards. Now, okay. Now, let's look at a particular local government. Let's take for instance, Ikeja local government.
Yes.
Now, you have about 6 councillors
yes.
in the local government.
Yes.
Now, how do you think this can help governance? Because at the various levels, is it that they will start having interactions rather, just like the local government, the state legislatures do? Are they going to start having interactive sessions, asking them what they want in their various local communities, because we know they represent the grassroots?
The good thing about councillors and wards is that most of the time you pick a councillors from the community, from the ward. What that means is that even the councillors will not need to ask people what they need again, because it has been part of that community. What that means is that the councillors even knows what the community people needs, because he stays within the community, he stays among his people, he was raised and brought up within that community. So he already knows, he or she already knows that this is what my community needs. This is what, we know that to an extent, the councillors will not have the capacity to take up some projects. What that means is that no matter the financial autonomy you give to councillors, councillors will not be able to do, construct or rehabilitate roads, unless palliative, on the roads. But the councillors might be able to take, like I mentioned earlier, councillors can still, put borehole projects within the community, because the finances is still minimal. It's still something a councillor, and we've seen councillors doing that. Councillors can still also, in terms of education, in terms of free GC or JAM forms, some councillors can still say that I'm doing a number of free JAM forms or free GC within the community. So the councillor does not even need to do an interactive section before he or she knows what the problem of the community is, because he stays within the community and he sees the problem on a daily basis. As he goes out, as he comes in, he knows the people in his street. He knows, maybe their town is not befitting enough. Maybe there can be some renovations. There's a particular road on one of the streets whereby the pothole have been there for a long time. They can fill up with rubbish or whatever and do some palliatives within the community. So this will also help in bringing dividends of democracy back to the people. It might be minimal, but to an extent, it will be impactful.
Are we not foreseeing clash? Because I know presently that the Lagos State House of Assembly is in charge of local government administration in terms of overseeing
Yes.
oversight functions and things like that.
Yes.
Now, if these ones now have, the councillors at the local government level now have autonomy, are they still going to be responsible or responsive, let me put it that way, to the state legislature, because they are the ones that are directly working with them?
You know, the way it works is that there are boundaries, you know. So even the Lagos State Assembly still oversees the local council in general, you know. There are levels, there are boundaries that where the local councillors can actually get into. Don't also forget that even though the Lagos State Assembly still oversees the local government, every year, whenever the local government or the executive arm comes up with the budget, they still takes it to the local government councillors, their chamber, for approval and all of that. So this separation of powers or separation of duties will still be available. You will still have it, but everybody knows their jobs. You know, just like you have the national or the state brings their budgets to the National Assembly and the State House of Assembly, and they scrutinize, you know, they check the budget, what items do you have and all of this. It still happens at the local government level as well. But I think that what we have at the local government level is not, you know, up to what happens at the national and state level when it comes to budget and appropriation and all of that. So I think by now, the local government can decide, or the councillors can decide to say that we actually want to start our job, just as you have it at the national level and at the state level as well. Then scrutinize budgets and all of that and perform their oversight functions. Just as you have in the State House of Assembly where you have committees, standing committees, whereby the standing committees goes to their different agencies and see what they are doing, even after passing their budgets. The local government councillors also have those standing committees, whereby you have the chairman house committee on so different agencies on health and all of that. So probably it is time that the local government councillors needs to start doing their oversight functions, go to primary health care, for example, the house committee on health, and see all of these things for themselves and ensure that, you know, the executive arm of government performs their functions optimally.
Do you foresee, I have to ask this question again, but relating to the executive chairman too. Okay. Now, won't there be a clash? Because over the years, the executive chairman of a local government have not been used to seeing oversight functions that will probably start coming from the councillors at that level. Do you foresee any clash, or what are your expectations in this area?
Well, I do not see a clash, because the reason why I said so is because, you know, it is not that the councillors will perform the oversight functions to fight the executive chairman or something. What they are just doing, when you say oversight functions, what they are just doing is that, for example, there's a road project that was approved and, you know, execution started. What the councillors does is to go to the road and see how far the job is going and see how the contractor is complying with the standard of what he or she said at the beginning, that this is what we do and all of that. So, and that's what oversight functions are. Go to primary health care center, go to schools and see for yourself whatever project is going on and all of that. So I do not see any clash coming up within them. We've also seen, just like I said, State Houses of Assembly does all of these things. And we've not seen any clash between the Assembly and the Governor. National Assembly also, we've not seen clash between the President and the National Assembly. So also, I do not foresee any clash between the Chairman and the councillors for performing their oversight function.
Yes, before I let you go, let's look at the area of, you've talked about having closeness to the grassroots, which I also agree. Yes. Now, in terms of providing security or aiding or helping security agencies to ensure that there is adequate security in the area, what are your expectations in this area?
From the councillors, right?
Yes.
Well, just like I said, it's simple. The councillors are closer to the people. They stay within the community. And what security agents, you know, ask or their demands is that if you see something, say something. If you see any issue within your community, just make a report to the, you know, security agencies, and they will rise up. So And these are the roles I think that not just the councillors alone, community people should should take up. If you see anything in your area, inform the security agency, because it is these informations that these security agencies will always work with to secure your community and your environment.
Yes, I want to thank you so much, Lekan Oni. I've been speaking with Olalekan Oni. He's also a public affairs person and also a grassroots person at the local government level. Democracy will also further be entrenched in Nigeria, and the separations of power will actually continue, and this will also aid development. On that note, we have come to the end of Talk Point. 767 and 112 are still the lines always called in times of emergency. Stay out of trouble. I promise you we will still continue with this topic, and we will also still see how we can bring in more people to discuss this, even when it is passed into law. I am Omololu Rosowo, signing out. Thank you.